listen to the gospel today, it is a difficult message in many ways to hear. And it's one of those that I think in many ways we pretend that Jesus didn't say what he said. It seems rather harsh. But I think it's a question of coming to really understand what Jesus is trying to get at. The true cost of discipleship. And that there is a price to pay for following him. And one of the places where the church helps us to begin to understand just what Jesus is getting at is one of those now what seems controversial points of the church, which is priestly celibacy. Because a lot of times when people look at priestly celibacy, what do they think about? We don't have sex. We don't get married. We don't have a family. And that's the point that we come to focus on. And somehow we think that that is the purpose or the point of celibacy, is not to have sex, not to have a family. But actually, it's not. That's sort of an effect of celibacy. It's not its purpose. So what is celibacy about? It is about putting Christ before all else. Trust me, when I was younger, I wanted to have a family. And I will be honest, one of the struggles of deciding to become a priest was the issue of celibacy, because I didn't fully understand or comprehend it. But once I understood the purpose of it, I am celibate that nothing comes before God. It is intended to be a sign to other Christians of how each and every one of us are called to live our life. The point Jesus makes today at the beginning, hating your mother, your brother, your father, your sister, and all of those other things, it's not about that. It's about recognizing that no relationship you have, none, should come before your relationship with Jesus. That must be the grounding and foundation of your entire life. And the problem is, if you put any human being before Jesus, you are no longer his disciple. That's the message he's trying to get at. And that is the reality of what celibacy is trying to teach us. Is I place nothing before God. Now, I don't do this perfectly. There's a reason I just went to confession on Friday. But the life I am trying to live is a life that is so centered in God that it becomes a sign to others of how to begin to live their life. And when we begin to understand that that is what celibacy is about, it begins to help us to understand what discipleship is about. It is about recognizing if Christ is the foundation of our entire life, of every relationship that we have, then we do not get to decide for ourselves how our relationships should be lived. It's not about what I want, what I need, what I desire. Those questions are completely irrelevant in a Christian setting. In a Christian setting, we have one question to ask. We have one thing to discern in our lives. What is the will of God? And to choose to do that and that alone. The way of life, the way of following Christ then comes with a cost. And the cost is that we essentially give up our own will, our own desires, what we consider our own needs. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, are we willing to pay the cost of discipleship? Are we willing to really take up the cross? And for each of us, that cross is going to be different. But to follow Christ, there is a cross. This is not just a metaphor or a nice platitude, but it is intended to be a way of life. For the way of the cross is a life of sacrifice, humility, obedience, of self-offering. It is about being willing to become a witness for the faith, a martyr. For the word martyr simply means witness. It is about our willing to die to ourselves in every situation of our lives. And it is then looking at our life and seeing what are the possessions we have. And it doesn't have to be monetary or even material. It can be attitudes that we have. Because what we possess doesn't actually mean we own it. It usually means it owns us. Are we willing to recognize what possesses us? And are we willing to let it go? To give all up for Christ? For that is the only way of discipleship. There is no partial discipleship. Now again, yes, this is a struggle. We're not going to do it perfectly. That's why we have the Eucharist. That's why we have confession. That's why we have prayer, to help us to be open to the grace, because we cannot do this on our own. I cannot live a celibate life without the grace of God, because quite frankly, celibacy is not natural or normal. I will be the first to admit that. But through the grace of God, it is something that I can live, empowered by that grace, dying to myself and giving all over to Christ. Ultimately, our lives are called to be that witness. The same, our lives should be that sign to others that everything we are doing is about Christ and about Christ alone. Paul, towards the end of his life, is arrested. Arrested for one reason. Because that's how he chose to live his life. He gave all up for Christ. And because his life is a sure sign of what it is to be a Christian, like Christ, they tried to stop him. They tried to quiet him. And so they arrested him. The question we have to put before ourselves today is, what signs are in our life that we truly put Christ first? Ask yourself this: if you could be like Paul, do you witness Christ to the point that if Christianity was illegal, you could be arrested?